Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us in today's town hall presented to you by the Gwinnett NAACP and Galeo. I'm Edward, the first vice president. Again, I'd like to thank you all for joining us as we discuss why local elections matter. First off, I'd like to thank Galeo for partnering with us this summer for our contactless canvassing. Also, a special thanks to all the people that volunteered, to the canvassers, to Galeo's canvassers, to Gwinnett NAACP canvassers. We thank you all. We know it was hot, very humid this summer. The weather wasn't perfect, but the Gwinnett NAACP alone was able to knock on over 3,000 doors this summer. So it's definitely special thanks to all those volunteers who withstood those humid conditions to help us make people aware of their upcoming local elections. Which brings us to today's town hall, which we would discuss why it's important for not only people to come out to vote for these elections, but also come out and run for these elections, to run for local office, run for mayor, run for city council, why those positions are important, how those positions impact the community. I also want to give a special thanks to our Gwinnett NAACP president, Ms. Penny Poole. If you like, Ms. Poole, you can definitely say a few words right now if you like.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. We know that we have a huge task in front of us, and we know that the only way that we can be successful as a community is to have collaborative efforts, and we know that together we all can make this work. I am so glad to be working with Galeo, and I want to say a shout out to their officers this morning. Again, thank you for this collaborative effort. Please, everyone, be safe. Please mask. Social distancing is important. I look forward to this conversation that we are about to have this morning. Thank you for coming from the Gwinnett NAACP.
All right. Well, with that being said, I turn you over to Galeo's own Braulio, and he's going to be our moderator for today's program.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. How are you guys? Thank you guys for the introduction. Thank you, everyone in attendance today. I am Braulio Pena. I am the community coordinator for Cobb County at Galileo. For any viewers who aren't familiar with Galileo, is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that works to raise civic engagement and leadership in the Latin community across Georgia. Galileo and Gwinnett and NAACP have been collaborating these past 2 months, joining forces and to knock on Latino and Black voters on multiple cities across Gwinnett County. As we get closer to the November municipal election, we wanted to take the opportunity to host this town hall for our community members and discuss the importance of local elections. We will have 4 guest speakers today. They are the Mayor of Norcross, Craig Newman, Peachtree Corner City Council candidate Joe Sawyer, the first Latina elected to the Georgia Central Assembly, Brenda Lopez, and Executive Director of Rep Georgia, Kimberlyn Carter. Now, if you would like to join or welcome our first guest, the Mayor of Norcross, Mayor Craig Newman.
Well, again, I want to just thank you all for being here, and I thank the Gwinnett NAACP for sponsoring this event, and thank you, Galeo, for what you're doing also in civic involvement, civic engagement. I think it's very important. Yeah, all these organizations are inclusive, and we have a big tent, we have a big table, and we want, of course, everyone to participate. So, I'm a person that believes that we can all do this better together, and I think that's important for us to start there and move forward.
Thank you for joining us. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No. Thank you for having me.
I just wanted to say I will be asking a few questions, and then we will open the floor to any viewers that do have any questions. Mm-hmm. The first one, can you explain your role of mayor?
Well, yeah, sure. The mayor, and there are, just to give you a little background, there are 5 different types of government. There's strong mayor type of government. There's weak mayor form of government. There's city manager form of government. There's council manager form of government. What we have is sort of a hybrid. which is a weak mayor and council manager form of government. But the responsibilities of a mayor include presiding over all the meetings of the city council, generally ensuring that the city departments run smoothly, helping to build a sense of community and providing leadership and services to our municipal citizens. The mayor serves as the official spokesperson for the city government, and the mayor is often empowered with the authority to vote in the event of a tie, or may have veto power. We don't have veto power here. That was not part of our charter here at the city of Norcross. But the mayor is also responsible for, of course, signing the contracts, ordinances, instruments executed by the governing body, which by law are required to be signed. Now, depending on the form of government, the mayor's executive duties range largely ceremonial, as in the council manager form of government, to managing the day-to-day operations as a strong mayor form of government, as they have at the city of Atlanta. Now, also under the council manager form of government, the mayor provides general oversight for executive functions or the meetings. The mayor actually controls the tempo and the cadence of the council meetings and ensures that they're run smoothly and effectively. And the mayor also acts as the ambassador for the city, bringing in new businesses, meeting in with prospective businesses, and just actively involved in the economic development of a city. And of course, the mayor sets the cadence because the mayor is the face of the city. And I think that's important that we move in a solid and a straight line toward one goal, and that's making our city a better place for all of its residents.
Awesome, awesome. The next question I do have following that up is, how much influence does the mayor office have on its city?
The mayor's office has tremendous influence over its city. Like I said, the mayor normally doesn't vote, only in case of a tie. But the mayor has strong influence because he or she influences the thought, the mental construct of a city, helps to set the cadence because you're constantly in front of the public doing speeches and helping your local leaders to move forward on their agenda items. So yes, the mayor plays a very, very important role.
Great. What drove you to want to run for mayor?
Well, yeah, many years ago, and probably before most of you were born, there was a TV program. My dad and I we were really close. We used to sit around and watch a provocative news program called Tony Brown's Journal. And Tony Brown would ask challenging and provocative questions of his audience. And me and my dad were sitting around watching that many years ago, and we both got worked up. And I said, Dad, Tony's right. You really need to run for office and help to make a change for the city of Norcross. But my dad was always engaged, and everybody in the city knew him because of his construction company. And he had at one point in time, because when Norcross was really small, had probably done work at almost every house in the city of Norcross. And so I admonished him. I said, you should run. People know you. Then he looked at me and said, no, son, I think you should run. Of course, he won that argument. And years later, here I am as mayor of the city of Norcross. But I ran in order to improve the quality of life for all the citizens and everyone that lives in and around the city of Norcross.
Following up with that question, and I appreciate all of this, do you have any message for the public or anyone interested in running for local office?
Well, that's a good question. When growing up, I grew up in a family of 7 kids, and of course my mom and dad. We weren't poor, but we weren't rich either. But one thing I realized as in growing up was that having seven brothers and sisters, when it was dinner time and your mom called you to come eat, if you're at the table at the time my mom called and food was served, then you would not eat. The same, and I think she was teaching us a lesson, and that lesson was, in order for you to profit, in order for you to grow, in order for you to prosper, you need to be at the table. So that's how I encourage people to get engaged and involved in not only local government, but state and federal government. Because to be honest with you, if you want to make change, you have to be at the table.
Wow. Well, that I certainly know that when someone tells you be at the table, you got to be there. I know that from first experience with my mom. But the last question I have for you before we open up to the floor is that most Americans ignore local elections and only focus on presidential elections. What would you say to those voters?
Wow, and that is a provocative thought, because people get lost in the fact that local government has a more direct impact on their day-to-day lives than federal government, and realize government moves slowly, and it moves slowly for a reason. It moves slowly so that we can make sound judgment and sound decisions, so that there is not what we call unintended consequences. So essentially, government moves slowly. And at the higher level, it moves super slow. But, those issues that we face day to day, our police services, safety, health, even a pothole, those are impacted by local leaders and local government. You can't pick up the phone and call the president, but you can pick up the phone and call your local city councilman or your local city councilwoman or anyone in the state or local government much quicker, much sooner than you could persons on the federal level. So, yeah, all politics is local.
Awesome. At this point, we are just going to go to some of our viewers that are watching now. At this time, if any of our viewers that would like to ask Mayor Craig Newton any questions, please leave a comment in the chat section. We're going to give it a couple of minutes to get those questions going. But once again, thank you so much for your time and everyone attending the live stream with us here today with Galileo and the NAACP today. Thank you guys. So we're just going to wait on these questions. We're going to wait a little bit. And after those questions pop up, I'll start asking them your way, sir.
Sure. Let me just say, while those questions are coming up, I didn't talk a little bit about. I've grown up here in the city of Norcross. I'm a lifer, married with four kids, and Norcross has always been our home. Actually, Norcross was my father's home and my grandfather's home. So I'm a native of Norcross. I've seen a lot of changes, good, bad, and indifferent here at the city of Norcross, and my experience comes from 30 years of management at a company called Micromeritics. We built scientific analytical laboratory equipment. I managed the production facility and the technical support facility after retiring after 33 years. So my heart and my soul is here at the city of Norcross, and I do what I do to make things better, not only for my kids, but for all those coming after me and all those that live in the city of Norcross and call Norcross home.
That's awesome. We did get a question right now from the audience. Rhonda Willis from Facebook said, "What are your plans to help in homelessness? Excuse me."
Well, Norcross is actually only one of, I guess, 3 cities in Georgia that have worked with DCA. in their program called GIC, which is the Georgia Initiative for Community Housing. And that organization looks at ways to help to stem the tide of not only homelessness, but to help in this problem that we have um, with unaffordable housing. And unaffordable housing means that if you spend more than 30% of your income on housing, then you're in that range where you're in the unaffordable living category. So what we're trying to do here in Norcross, and we have our GIG program, and we have about 12 individuals that are currently active in that committee. We've had several meetings, and we've had several initiatives that have been proposed by a GIC organization, and we're moving forward on several of those. We had an opportunity to create some low-income housing here, or affordable housing over this last year that we didn't quite make happen. I don't know if we could have worked harder to make that happen, it would have happened. I do believe that we could have worked harder, but we'll see. We're working. We have 2 other projects for affordable housing that are currently being discussed right here in the city of Norcross. One of the things that we're doing is with our local housing authority. We're going to be working with them to repurpose those low-income houses that we have in place right now in the city, and there are approximately 40 to 60 units that we're going to. They're old. They're about 50 years old. We're working with the housing department to kind of tear those down and rebuild those, and increase the number of homes that will be available to our public here in the Norcross area. That's something that you can look forward to beginning to happen within the next year.
Awesome. Before I let you go, we do have one last question from the audience. Rhonda Willis again asking, what are the plans for the mall in Norcross?
Or we don't have a mall in North, but maybe it's for the mall in Duluth. I know that they have a CID, and I know that the county, Gwinnett County, has begun purchasing that property to repurpose it and redesign it to make a live work play neighborhood type environment there at Gwinnett Place Mall. And from what I've seen on the outside, they have some really good plans. I don't know if those have been shared broadly, but I look forward to seeing what's going to happen there at Gwinnett Place Mall, if that's what she's referring to.
I believe so. We have another question from Facebook. Coleman Tyler says to all the panelists, in presidential elections, the Democrats and Republican parties drive and fund get out of vote campaigners, but in local elections doesn't get some attention and the resources to support increasing voter turnout. Your thoughts and ideas on how to change that?
I guess that question is going to the general panel.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. It's in presidential elections, and Democrats and Republican parties driving fund to get out the vote campaigns, but on local elections, it doesn't get the same attention and the resources to support increasing voter turnout. Your thoughts and ideas on how to change that?
Yeah, and I think the person that answered the question is right. We tend to come out in droves whenever there's a presidential election, but when there are local elections to fill empty seats, even though money's and time and effort is invested, we don't come out in full force as we do when there's a presidential election. I think I think that's short-sighted on our part because, as I said before, the most impact on your day-to-day life happens at the local level and not the federal level.
I'd like to make a remark about that also, if possible.
Of course, go
Um,
ahead.
One of the reasons why we're having this forum today is for that exact reason. Many people in Gwinnett County are not aware of the municipalities, whether or not they live inside or outside of city limits. And this has been a tactic that has had people uninformed about the ability to cast a ballot. Most times people are not even aware that an election is even occurring. So it's going to take these grassroots efforts like Galeo and the NAACP bringing out this message. Most people don't even know that November 2021 there are elections happening. The difficult part about this is that in Gwinnett County, we have 16 incorporated cities, 16. And then all of these elections are handled individually. So it's not coming from one source. So the biggest obstacle in this process, as far as I have seen, is that people are unaware that they can go to their city halls and vote, or when this process happens, who is running and who the candidates are. So, and then these elections are nonpartisan. So you're not looking at Democrats and Republicans. Local elections are nonpartisan. So this even makes it more difficult because you're not hearing at it from the party level. So what we have to do as citizens and organizations is to educate and inform and make this information as available as other information for other elections. And I am so proud. I don't have the exact number, but if you who have been canvassing, if you could let our audience know how many doors were knocked on by both organizations, this will give you an idea of the task ahead of us and how much more we have to do. So that I'm going to give this to Braulio and to Edward. How many doors did we knock on in this campaign to let people know about this process?
I know for our organization, Gwinnett NAACP, we knocked on over 3,000 doors in 6 different cities. Norcross was one of those cities. Lawrenceville, Grayson, the Gwinnett side of Loganville. So we covered some pretty good ground. Peachtree Corners was another city we went to. So I don't know what Galeo numbers are as far as that, how many doors they knocked on, but I know we knocked on over 3,000, just us alone. So that doesn't even include how many Galeo has done over the last couple of months.
Right. And just to be inclusive, I know there was Snellville, Lilburn, Grayson also. So we hit areas that needed to be. Braulio, can you update us on approximately the number that they may have knocked on in Gwinnett? I know
So
you're
in
from
Gwinnett,
Cobb. Mhm.
so in Gwinnett, I know working with Derek and their field of team, they have made over like 10,000 of phone calls and text making and everything, just getting it out there because with the whole
Yes.
COVID thing going on, keeping everyone safe. But we're slowly going out there again, beginning on our door knocking. But they've been knocking quite a while. I believe last Saturday with I believe 2 weeks ago, correct me if I'm wrong, the NCAAP and then Galeo went out to knock on doors. So that's what we're doing now. And our main focus is throughout from the date of August 14th to all the way to November. All we're going to do is knocking on doors and getting out there on Cobb, DeKalb, Gwinnett, and just try to hit every city we can and go out there.
Wonderful. And sir, this is what it's going to take to spread this message, to let people know that biannual, these elections are held regardless, and that the citizens need to, wherever you live, it is the obligation to listen out. Qualification for candidates who will be running in November ends in August. So our next step would be to let people know that people will qualify, will be running, and let them know who in their city is eligible to run for office and the candidates that will be available in the November elections. So it's a process. And with Gwinnett having so many cities, and this being, as we all know, is a suppressive county for voters to learn about different processes. It's a big job. We're taking it one day at a time and one objective at a time. I am so proud of what you guys have done in this process. Great job, guys.
Thank you so much.
I
Thank
hope that
you.
helped.
Thank you, Cole. Well, excuse me, Coleman Tyler, excuse me, for the question. President Mayor Craig Newton, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. Up next, we're going to have the Peachtree Corner City Council candidate, Joe Sawyer.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you guys at home that are watching the live stream, please continue with the questions or any comments that you have for our panelists today. Once again, thank you guys for taking the time to be with us here today on a Saturday morning and enjoying us with this vital information. So thank you guys for all you guys out there. And thank you once again, the NAACP and all you guys for letting us be a part of this. So thank you guys so much. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? Doing good. Blessed and highly favored.
Good. Just to begin with, can you just please tell us how you began this journey of running for office?
It started, first of all, I want to say thank you to the NAACP and Penny Poole, who I met at the 4th of July fireworks with when I was talking to Craig Newton. Funny story, I was cleaning out my desk the other day, Penny, and I found a NAACP card from my mom from 1964.
Wow.
I was like, oh, she was gangster back then. So we're good. So thank you, and thank you, Galileo. I started my journey. This is my third time running. I started my journey in 2011 when the city was formed, and I ran the first time, and I got beat by close to 400 and some votes. I ran again in 2017 for the same post 4, which is an at-large position. And I only got beat by 15 votes in a runoff. So this year we're gonna bring it home. We're building a team. We're taking in donations. This whole thing it's about the people and the lack of what the city is doing on the south side of Peachtree Corners. I have to bring attention to it because if I don't do it, I feel like God has put me in this position to do these things for the people on the south side. But it's about all of Peachtree Corners. So we want Peachtree Corners to be one of the most powerful cities in Gwinnett. It's also the biggest city in Gwinnett. So, we just need everybody to just get out and support and vote. And, it's just all about the people. I've been married 29 years this year to my wife. We have 2 kids, 5 grandkids. And it's like I was explaining to the gentleman, when Penny called me Thursday and asked me to do it, I forgot that I had granddaddy duties this weekend. So if one of them bust in here, that'd be all right. And I own my own carpet cleaning company. It's called Alpha and Omega Carpet Cleaning. We're based out of Peachtree Corners, and been doing that 20 years. I also founded a nonprofit called Bridges Peachtree Corners, and that was in 2014, and we help the people on the south side. We're a nonprofit. We don't pay rent, we don't pay bills, but we give people the resources to call the places that need, that will help you. So, I mean, for me, I'm called Citizen Joe Sawyer. People remember that name. So, I just kind of stick with it. So, God is good. We're going to be all right. And I, I can say to the one question that was asked a few minutes ago, I always tell people it's always about the local election, because the local election is what puts puts things into play. You can't worry about what's happening in Washington, because basically once that happens, it's a trickle down effect. But you have to support the local elections, because when I ran a couple of years ago, I knocked on over 2,000 doors myself. I didn't have a canvassing. I didn't have anybody helping. I did it myself. So I did have one or two people help, but I lost probably about 20 pounds because I didn't know how big Peachtree Corners was. So, but it's good. It was a learning experience. I learned from my mistake. And this time we're gonna be, like I said, we're gonna bring it home. I've been campaigning for the last 4 years because I'm able to get into people's homes in Peachtree Corners when I'm cleaning their carpets and talk to them. And it's surprising that a lot of people on the north side of town, they do care about what's happening on the south side of town. But when I become a city councilman, I'm gonna be for all the people, but I'm gonna be an active city councilman. I'm not gonna just go to ribbon cuttings and everything else. I'm gonna go out and talk to people, because that's what people want. As a citizen, you want a politician or a person that cares about you. You don't want somebody that just comes around every 4 years or every 2 years. So it's good for me. You know, God is good, and it's gonna be all right this time.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that information. We do have a question from the audience. Mr. Sawyer, what are you hearing from residents and businesses are key issues they want addressed?
Well, I'm hearing a lot, especially from the south side, which is where I live at. I've been a Peachtree Corner resident for over 25 years. And I'm hearing a lot because they're saying, well, we don't feel like we exist to the city. And the city is pretty compromised. As the north side of town is more affluent. It's where people vote. The south side of town, the apartments and townhomes and the businesses over here, we don't feel like we get the support of the city. So what I plan on changing is making it about all people, not just the north and the south. Because if we don't get together, everything, if the south side fails, the north side fails. So if we don't start building homes and bringing businesses in on this side of town, you know, it's going to have a trickle down effect, just like the government from up top to local. It has a trickle down effect to everything.
Thank you so much for that. I would ask you another question that we have is when the process of applying for office, what would you say was the most challenging for you when you were starting your journey?
The most challenging thing was honestly to get black people out to vote, because we don't like to vote in local elections until it has to be something big. Like when Barack ran, we came out in numbers. When Stacey ran a couple of years ago, I've never seen a ground game like she had. I mean, it was powerful. But once we realized as minorities, for now, the black and the Hispanic community, once we understand that it starts locally, I think more and more people will get engaged into the local election.
Very interesting. That's very true. What advice would you get for people that are interested in running for your office? What would you give advice to them? What would you say to them?
It's hard and it's time consuming. You know, you got to spend time away from your family. I mean, I'm also a preacher, so it's like I got a lot of stuff going on. Doing that, and it's make sure you got the time and make sure you're able to get out and talk to people. That's very important. Very important. And make sure you got the financial backing to do it, because it costs money. Sometimes it's your own money.
Of course. And then this is the last question I have. How does the city council impact Live City residents?
Well, they vote on a lot of stuff that that comes to the city. It's like they voted on the bridge. They voted on in the Peachtree corners. They voted on the bridge that was put up. They voted on the botanical garden that's going on. They vote on issues for within the city. So what happens is they have work sessions and they talk about it, and then they figure out what's important at that time. So, they can vote. We don't have a police department or anything like that, but the city council is important for the citizens because it's a day-to-day thing that they vote on. So, you just gotta just do the right thing when you vote.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Mr. Sawyer, and thank you for your time. We're going to see if we have any last comments before we let you go. Let me just double check right here from the section if we have any last questions before we bring our next guest. But thank you so much for your time.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
And I think the last question that I can see here, Mayor Newton, how is Peachtree Corner sustaining through pandemic evictions?
Is that for me or
That's
me
for
or
you,
Newton?
sir.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, you good. I it's hard when you see people walking around without masks. Like when they opened up when they opened everything up a couple of months ago, when you seen people walking around and it's like, man, are they vaccinated? It's a scary thing. This COVID is very, people don't realize I'm a two-time cancer survivor. I had COVID back in December. And I'm telling you, it knocked me out for 2.5 weeks. And my wife was asking me, she said, "You want to go to the hospital?" I said, "No, people that go to the hospital don't come back home." So I fought it myself at home. It's no joke. This COVID and this Delta variant, I'm gonna tell people, get a shot. It's not gonna hurt. I took a shot on a Friday. I took Johnson on a Friday and went to Myrtle Beach on Saturday. So it's not that bad. I mean, my nonprofit Bridges Peachtree Corners, we're having a vaccination drive next Saturday. And we're giving away free barbecue plates if you come in and you get your shot. We're gonna have Johnson and Pfizer. So we have to take our shots. And as far as the eviction, it's like I told my daughter, and I tell anybody, when the 60 days is up, there's going to be a lot of people homeless. It is, but you gotta, we've had time to plan the past year and a half as far as what we're gonna do. Some people are not as fortunate as me. My business, I've had my business has flourished in this, pandemic because of people, they're in their house and they see dirty carpet, so they call the carpet man. So it's like I'm praying for everyone that when this 60 days is up, that we have a plan. I don't know what the plan is in Peachtree Corners because I'm not privy to that information yet. So I'm just let people know I'm praying for them.
Well, thank you so
Well,
much for.
I
I'm
just
sorry.
want
Did you
to,
want to say something?
yeah, this is Penny Pool. I just want to make sure that you realize that each of the incorporated cities receive federal funds. So, as a citizen, you can go to the city of Peachtree Corners and demand to see how much money is available through the CARES Act that had been previously given out, and also see what monies are upcomings that can be distributed to the population. So I just
Right.
want to make that suggestion, to help with your bridging. And
Yes, ma'am.
again, thank you for coming.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
Definitely, yeah, check those resources out. Thank
Will
you.
do, ma'am. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. We are going to bring our next panelist up. We're going to be bringing up, we'll have speaking next is Brenda Lopez. Good morning, Brenda Lopez. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. And of course, to the viewers, thank you for tuning in.
So first, you can tell us a little why you decided to run for office and your journey where you are today, if you don't mind telling us.
Well, I ran for a state house district, House District 99. I guess my story of how I ultimately ran really started since I was a young person, since I was in high school and definitely throughout college. I did a lot of volunteer work. Actually, one of the first organizations that I volunteered for at the state capitol and learned about citizen lobbying and going and talking to legislators was precisely with Galeo and what is nowadays GLAR. And so I've, was habitually always very involved in what happened in communities, particularly communities of color and low-income communities, which is a lot of my background, and the lack of our voices and our faces in a lot of these elected positions, whether it was in the state capitol, and now, of course, whether we're discussing city council. It's very similar issues that we have. But the reality is that I never did think about running for office myself, even though I was doing a lot of advocacy work. It just never occurred to me at the time that I could run for office. And then ultimately I started helping out in more campaigns in 2014. And after that election cycle, I had two separate friends reach out to me and tell me if I could consider running. And I, said, nah, this is not the right time for me. I was just starting my law practice about a year plus in, and wanted to get that situated. But the reality is, my second friend, I couldn't say no so quickly, so he told me to think about it. I told him I would. He suggested I speak to the then former state representative, which I did. And unfortunately, we didn't have a very good conversation. Despite the fact that he was, because these are partisan elections, he was running as a Democrat, and had been listed as a Democrat for the 10-12 years that he had been elected. He did not represent Gwinnett, let alone our House district, and we had some very choice words, how he described a lot of the stereotypes of low-income neighborhoods and immigrant neighborhoods. And so ultimately I got I got pissed off, quite frankly, at the individual. And that's ultimately why I decided to run for office, because that's sort of where it connected the dots for me, where I had been going to the state capitol for, at that point, 10 years as a just private person lobbying on behalf of whatever advocacy issue at that moment. And I realized that for the last 10 years, we had been, quote unquote, lobbying or advocating exactly the same elected officials. And so how do you expect a different outcome if the same people are elected throughout this whole time and you haven't seen that legislative change or that policy change like at city council? So that's ultimately, how I got here. I'm, as I mentioned, an attorney by background, and just doing general volunteer community advocacy work has just been the standard of the work that I've done.
Wow, that's amazing. The next question that's going to lead up to this is how important is the local government to the livelihood of residents?
Well, especially if we're talking about local city council, because it is a municipal year, and I am actually, and my side, I know both Galeo and the Gwinnett NAACP are C3s, even though Galeo has a C4. And but I also, on the side, I'm the current chairperson for the Gwinnett County Democratic Committee. And so we are actually focusing, I think there was a prior question about this, we are specifically being intentional and proactive on recruiting Democrat-leaning individuals to run for city council, even though, as Penny had mentioned, they are technically nonpartisan elections. However, people do not come as nonpartisan. People come with perspectives about life. And I think that sometimes in a very, very imperfect way, and I acknowledge that, a party designation gives you some glimpse as to what that perspective might be, but nonetheless still very important to confirm and verify if that person really represents your values and your interests that you have as a voter. But that being said, the reason that I've always thought it was important to focus on municipal elections, which we have not in a very more strategic sense, is precisely because if you want to talk about the day-to-day issues that we've discussed here, but there's also major things. 6 of our cities here in Gwinnett County alone have their own local police departments. And it is usually the city mayor and the city council that decides who to hire for these, for chief of police. And so if we have concerns, for example, about making sure that we have a community policing and programs, that we have safety priorities, that we ensure that we develop greater trust with our police departments, then one of the best ways to make sure that you have more direct accountability about who these police departments are hiring is through your city council, right? Beyond, of course, lots of those of us here in Gwinnett County that are unincorporated parts are under the Gwinnett County Police Department. But that's, one direct way. And there's a lot of issues that can be handled. I think Mayor Newton was mentioning it before, that can be handled at the local level much quicker than it can even at the state legislature, much less at the federal level. So what I mean by that, if we had the right people in place in city council, for example, in Mayor Newton's example, we could push faster for affordable housing at the city level. We could, if we, name your issue. If your issue is concerns with the environment, we could, in fact, if we had the right people in city council, lobby them to do things that would be more proactive in helping secure a more environmental use of our planet, whether that would be subsidizing for solar panels. We've had some municipalities, not here in Gwinnett, but throughout other states, that have incentivized or de-incentivized the use of single-use plastics, for example, right? So these are like real specific points about what a city council can do that many a times the larger levels of government, whether that's the state legislature or the federal level, simply does not move as quick on these things. But that being said, the caveat is if we have the right people in city council. And that's why it is important for us to both run for city council and also as voters vote. Turnout in municipal elections is just severely low, And I'll give you an example. Usually Peachtree Corners and Norcross are some of our highest turnout cities, but none have really capped over 3,000 votes in any single election. And in the lowest end, I believe it was the last two election cycles ago, we had Grayson, where the vote split or the vote difference was 59 votes. So, city council races are low entry into elected positions, and they're also critically important to be able to do real work that affect our lives every single day.
Wow, thank you so much for all this valuable information. I always tell my mom I learn something new every day, and I just learned something very new today. So thank you so much for that. Following up with that question, the next question that I wanted to ask, do you feel the power of local and state government has shifted since the start of the pandemic?
I guess a little bit more to clarify, if the power has shifted in terms of who does what?
I guess in a sense, I should have worded it better. I'm sorry. I guess it's who does what, or like who has a little bit of a power since the pandemic has started.
Well, I would say that it's not. I don't necessarily consider that there's been a shift in power amongst the different levels of local government, but rather each level of government is showing what its purpose is, right? At the federal level, of course, as Penny had mentioned, with the CARES Act moving forward and moving through, shifted that money down to both the state and the county levels. And then the counties, particularly for us, for the purposes of Gwinnett County, then kind of coordinated with the different municipalities for some of the redistribution of that CARES Act funding. And so, again, but it's not a shift so much as in that is the process of the different levels. The other thing that I would say, as it relates to what can be done when we have these issues of public health concern, right? Whether it's COVID today or anything in the future, is that we can see some of the way of flexibility that some city councils have, again, if we have the right people in city council. And by that, I mean, of course, there have been some city councils that businesses, did really quick changes in their ordinances to allow for delivery of beverages or delivery of food or curbside stands that weren't necessarily allowable under local ordinances prior to COVID. But in order to help small businesses ensure that they stayed open, a lot of city councils had a lot of flexibility with some of their ordinances and were able to change those ordinances before the county could or would. And so, that's a really good example about how much more flexible a city council can be to deal with their local issues. You had different cities providing different services, whether they were food distribution drives. The county had a substantial number of food that was provided to the county, and then the county redistributed it down to the cities and to some nonprofits as well. And you also had, mentioning, the eviction issue before. We had, again, through the CARES Act, some money that came from the state, some from the county that went down to the cities, but some cities have utilized this money in very many different ways, some to help provide for direct rental assistance, for example, and some because the county is doing that sort of programming already, chose not to do anything directly through their own city councils. So, what you see of the services and the outreach that has been provided by city council during the COVID pandemic really is just sort of a picture on how these local entities work and sometimes don't work together.
Thank you so much. Before I ask the very last question, please, if you have any comments for Brenda Lopez, please, and the people that are watching from home or joining us now, please, if you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to add them to our comments. And the last question I would have before I let you go is, do you have any special message for voters or anyone who may be interested in running for office?
Yes, reach out to me. No, I honestly do mean it. Please reach out to me. We are still looking for people to file what was mentioned before, qualifying. That means basically filling a form and paying your filing fees, which is, pretty reasonable for most cities. Is usually somewhere between $150 to $250. That qualifying period is technically August 16th through the 20th, which is this coming week. But most cities have shortened their qualifying period to only the 16th through the 18th. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me personally. I'm happy to provide my email. That's lopez@lopezfirm.com, lopez@lopezfirm.com, and check out your local party institutions as well, in addition to the nonprofit organizations that are doing some of this advocacy work, so that you get involved in finding out, one thing, of course, we still have time for people to run for office, but at the same time, if your interest is in helping get a better city council, I would also suggest that you consider volunteering with us, again, at local county committees, also with the nonprofits, because there can only be a handful of people that run, but those individuals that run, like Joe and like many of the other candidates that we as Gwinnett Democrats are going to be supporting, need your volunteer hours and time, need your help to go knock on those doors, and they also need your money. Just like the organizations here, just like the county parties, we need financial support to do this work. And so if you are interested in city council, if you're interested in local politics, and you're not necessarily ready to run today, then volunteer your time and money. And I would suggest that is probably one of the best ways to get engaged, because then you have investment in the candidates that ultimately will become elected.
Thank you so much for your time and taking time to be here with us today. And thank you for all the information that you gave us today. For our last guest, we'll have Kimberlyn speaking about our training opportunities and resources for anyone interested in running for office. Let's welcome Executive Director of Rep Georgia, Kimberlyn Carter.
Yeah, Kimberly's not with us yet, so I did want to, while we wait on her to come in, ask Brenda a quick question, since she was in this Georgia Assembly. So with everything going on right now, as we see at the Capitol, with them coming in and passing bills that punishes municipalities if they want to redistribute resources from local municipalities, or block the local municipalities from redistributing resources from law enforcement to other things like housing or mental health. Can you speak to, and I know this is a local election platform, but this is 2021. We're approaching toward the end of the year now. We're 8 months into the year, going on 9, and getting ready to platform into the state election. Can you talk about the importance of how the state officials can roll back a lot of these laws that's been passed at the state level that not only will help the local level get control back over their own governments, but also at the same time make voting easier for citizens in Georgia? Can you just talk about, tie those two things together?
Sure, absolutely. And that's another good example on why city council elections matter, right? Because the reality is that being in the state legislature, as a Democrat, you're in the minority party. And the reason that I point that out is not a partisan issue. One of the reasons that I point this out is because it's just a fact. The reality is that the majority of these bills that we have seen, especially voter suppression bills and bills to remove power of local municipalities to run their own election boards, to decide what to do with their budgets in terms of law enforcement budget or otherwise. All of these things have, quite frankly, been passed on party line vote for the most part, and that split, has been passed by what we have is a majority Republican legislature in the state of Georgia, and we have had probably for the last 10 years. They are now going to go to special session for redistricting purposes, and that is something that we're going to have to, as voters, keep an eye on to see what those power dynamics end up being for some of these races, to see how competitive they can or can't be for a shift in majority power in the state legislature. But assuming that we maintained maintain the minority party as Democrats, the reality is that if that is true, and that continues to be true in these next 10 years after redistricting, then the vanguard of protecting our voter access, the vanguard to protecting whatever issue that's important to you, is going to be at the city councils, right? It is going to be at your school boards. It is going to be your county commission. It is going to be your countywide electeds, all of your local people that can actually help to at least minimize the negative impact of some of this state legislation that has been passed. And, for example, city council can choose to be more expansive in the number of hours that ballots are certain office hours for votings can occur. The fact that in Gwinnett County, we're required by federal statute to provide Spanish language access, and now we're looking at other language access for other limited English proficiency, especially within sort of the Asian diaspora. All of these things are things that can be done at your county level, that can be done at your city level. And again, that's why it goes back to, like, it matters who's elected in city councils, for us to be able to utilize the city council, quite frankly, to protect us against some of the bills and that we may consider negative bills, or that have a suppressive impact to them, at least at the very local level. We've seen that, and we've seen this more in the limelight of the city of Atlanta, right? When we see sort of some of the fighting, right? There's some cities that have chosen to, quite frankly, file lawsuits during the issues of against the governor, when we were having issues about whether we could do mass mandates or not. And we had a couple of cities, not here in Gwinnett County, but in other parts of our state, that actually sued the governor against his prohibitions on their local power. So yes, the short answer is that city councils are going to be extremely important to continue to protect our rights.
Sorry, I think I got muted. Sorry. So I was saying, just make sure for those of you, if you want to check your local election and verify whether you're eligible, to please contact your city hall. If you're not efficient in terms of understanding how to check that information on the internet, you can do that by contacting the city hall, give them your address, and they can verify whether you're eligible to vote in that election. I will say it's going to be important to definitely come out and vote in your municipal election, and to come back in full force and bring people with you in 2022 for the upcoming state elections, because at that particular time, that'll give you the opportunity to empower those that you've elected in 2021 at the local level, especially since there's a lot of bills, as we discussed, that are being passed to basically hinder or strip away power from city council, from mayor. You have an opportunity in 2022 to elect state officials that support voting rights, that support local power, support city councils and mayors being able to have control over what goes on in each city in Gwinnett County. So just keep that in mind. I mean, this is why elections matter. It's not just about presidential elections. These local elections are important because these are the people that's going to, like Ms. Lopez just explained, decide, where they're going to dump waste. They're going to help expand or try to do things involving housing. They're going to make this about resources from law enforcement into other divisions that are more public safety, and take pressure off law enforcement being able to be called out on every single thing that happens within the city, and empower some of these other positions, which in the long run will open up jobs. They'll be over some of this money that's coming down in the infrastructure bill to fix potholes, expand a broadband internet in your community where you may just only have DSL or dial-up or satellite internet. So it's very important to come out for these elections, but definitely come out in full force for your state elections, because in those state elections, again, you'll have opportunity to elect people that will empower the people that you're going to elect this fall for your local elections.
Thank you so much. We're just waiting to see if we have any couple of comments coming in, and we're waiting for Kimberly and Carter to join us briefly. But if you have any question, guys, thank you to all the panelists once again for coming out, taking time to be with us here today, this Saturday morning. If you're just joining in, please welcome to ask any questions at any time. And yeah, thank you guys.
I do have a question while we wait for questions to come in from the chat. This is for citizen Joy Sawyer, who's running for city council. Can you give us an idea, as far as you're running in Peachtree Corners? Can you give us an idea of some of the things or platforms or policies you're looking to come in to change or improve as you run for city council?
Yeah, like I said before, I want to change how we do things. I mean, I want to be, as living on the South Side. I a couple of years ago when I ran, I said, I'm all for, they built a big bridge over at Town Center. I don't know if you've been to up Peachtree Parkway, but I said I'm all for doing that, but let's put one where it needs to be, over by Target and Crystal, where people are actually getting killed going across the street. We have to care about the citizens, all the citizens of Peachtree Corner. I want to be able to. There's shopping centers over here on this side of town on Holcomb Bridge. There's 2 or 3 of them. I know one of the developers, one of the owners, and he wants to come in and change it. He wants to make it more attractive. They're putting in more attractive businesses, and they're minority businesses, which is good. But we have to, as a city, we have to think, hey, there's people on the other side of town that need our help, that we've been neglecting. And that's me as a black man, as a minority. I see what's happening. The Democrats have tried it, the Republicans tried it. They don't know what they're doing over here. I do. It's all about bringing all the people. We tend to forget. We make things black, white, Democrat, Republican. We got to stop doing that. We have to focus on the people themselves, the less fortunate people. A lot of people over here on this side of town, they don't make $100,000 a year. I mean, some of them are scraping by at $24,000 a year. We have to, as a city, we have to help them. We talking about doing live, work, play. Well, you can't live, work, and play if you're making $24,000 a year. You know, some of the things that's going up in Peachtree Corner, you know, townhomes, $500,000-$600,000. You can't afford that. You know, apartments over here. uh, After the 4th of July, the apartments went from a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment was $1,100 before the 4th of July. After the 4th of July, the apartments over here on this side of town, I don't know what it's like on the other side, but this side of town, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath is going for $1,600. And and I think that as a city, we need to address things like that, because that people can't afford it, and somebody's got to fight for them. And I'm the one that's going to fight for them. There's no one on the council, and I'm not dogging anybody on the council, but there's no one on the council that lives over here, so they don't understand it. I live over here, so I want to be able to help the people find jobs. I want to be able to help people do things that they want to do. You know, they got families. There's people leaving kids at home because they got to work. They can't afford it. You know, it's hard. You know, it's hard. You know, I came from a family where my dad was, you know, hey, he had a 6th grade education, but he raised 6 kids, and I'm the baby out of 6. I'm also the biggest, so I got the food. So you know, we just have to think it's about. I, my campaign is all about all the Peachtree Corners, not just one side of Peachtree Corners. All the Peachtree Corners, black, white, Hispanic. We all got to work together, and I'm the one to do that. Get people together.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Yes, sir.
As we've been asking all these questions and giving out this information, what does, as organizers, what do we see as our next round to getting people informed and involved in this process? I know we've spoken about a lot of things today. How do we see our next steps? Edward?
I think we just got to continue to do what we're doing. I mean, I think we need to continue to phone bank, continue to make people aware, continue to have platforms like this where candidates and people who are running for office or are currently in office come on and talk about the importance of these issues. As we've seen today, as everybody has expressed, you know, these local elections are very important. They have immediate impact with the decisions that are being made. I would also suggest citizens start attending their town hall meetings. In my line of profession, I get a lot of calls from different customers about lack of broadband access in their communities. And I tell them, you know, look, when this infrastructure bill passes at the federal level, you know, you need to be organizing your neighbors to go to these city hall meetings and demand that from the city council and mayor to get broadband access in your communities. You know, because we know with the pandemic hitting, now we see, you know, internet is equally as important nowadays as water and electricity, because everything is now virtual, and it's safer that way with the COVID cases continuing to rise, especially in the schools. So the ones that are economically disadvantaged, that live in rural areas, that doesn't have access to high-speed internet, those children are getting left behind. So again, I would just say for us, we need to continue to do what we're doing by getting this message out here and to the voters and citizens out there in Gwinnett County and throughout Georgia and throughout the country. You all need to be organizing in your community to go to these meetings and to get these and demand that these resources be implemented in your neighborhood. Just don't sit back and let these federal dollars pass through your local and state level, and you're not making sure that your community are getting the resources it needs.
Okay, great.
And roads and streets.
Great. Braulio, how about you? What do you see as next steps?
So, like Edward was saying, I do believe that keep doing what we're doing, working on the field, keep making phone calls, being persistent, sending texts, and, just having open conversations with voters and leaders in our communities. We want to have people informed of what's really going on in our day-to-day lives, where they live. A lot of people, when I've gone canvassing, they just tell me, what's the point of me going out? We only need to worry about when it's the presidential election. Like, no, like things happen in our day-to-day lives that we might not know about because they don't have the right tools or information that we could probably teach them and help them learn and to like better get involved with their community, and just instead of waiting every 4 years to something to go on for a change, let's keep working every day. And like the mayor said, let's be on the table, and Brenda said as well, just be very active in what you do and just keep doing that. Transparency is very key in this. What I would say, we need to both hold voters and officials accountable, and everyone needs to do their part. So what I just feel like is, as we keep continuing pushing voter registration forms, knocking door to door, we also need to just tell people this is why we're here for, but informing that information so people know what they're really getting into, not just, I don't know what to do. I believe I counted every time out of 1 to 10 people that I interacted with, didn't know why they needed to vote or didn't care why they needed to vote. So I believe Bob for information, especially with our youth, they don't really care that what's going on. And we use a lot of social media platforms for other things, but we can use that platform to also be our voice to be heard, but also for people to know what's going on in our day-to-day lives to make a change.
I want to give an example. How we met our secretary, Adrienne Johnson, is because she was actually running for a city council seat in Decula in a special election in 2020. And Adrian was out in the field working in the city of Decula for a seat that was vacated from the 2019 election. Well, when we found out about it, it was such a small window, and before she could go forward, COVID hit. So when COVID hit, it was even more arduous. As a matter of fact, this election was the same date, scheduled the same date as the 2020 presidential preferential primary, February 27th. Well, the nation canceled the presidential primary, but the city of Decula did not. And that election, with COVID and all the other pandemic conditions, because in February it was still new, but that city hall election still went forward. And guess what happened? A total of less than 125 people decided that seat for city council in the city of Decula. Again, less than 125 people totally voted in that election and picked that next city councilman. So I'm giving you that story to say how important one vote is, one vote, because that can mean the difference of someone in or out of a seat. And the numbers that shown up, people were afraid because the pandemic was new, but the election, to the dismay of the community, still was held on that day. So I was listening both to Braulio and Edward, and I think the biggest point that I heard was we have to participate to make that difference. We have to show up. So the speakers that we've had and the information about all of it came back to that one point of we as citizens showing up. So I am so excited for what has been done here today. Just to inform you, our speaker had an emergency and is unable to be present here today. We're going to have to reschedule Ms. Carter for another time. But if I will throw this back to Braulio and as our commentator today, and see if there are any other questions, if we may have any community announcements, and how we can get any other last comments and on this program. Back to you, Braulio.
Thank you so much. Like I've said before, countless times, thank you everyone today, and all our panelists included today, for taking time and being here with us today. I thank you guys so much for this vital information and being a part with us today. Right now, we are doing a couple of last minutes. If anybody has any questions, feel free to post it or comment it down in the section below. We would be seeing them in a bit. And lastly, please follow us on our Instagram, our social media pages, to keep updated with what we're doing on a day-to-day. NAACP, go follow them, please. Go give them a follow. Look at their social media. Always have vital information. Galileo, please. Thank you all you guys for joining. We're just waiting to see if we have a couple of last questions from the viewerships at home and everybody. But once again, thank you guys for making time. Like I said, we always have information. We're always trying to give to our community, trying to better, trying to improve. So thank you guys. And as we wait for the last comments, we're going to see if anybody has anything before we wrap it up. But yeah, thank you guys. If Edward or Ms. Poe want to say anything, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Again, I just like to thank first thank Galileo for partnering with us, putting this town hall together. It's been a great partnership over the summer since we met doing the contactless canvassing. And so we look forward to continuing to work with you all going forward and into the future and into 2022 for state elections. I also like to thank all our guests for coming on. We appreciate your time and your thoughts and your knowledge that you brought to the table, as well as thank all the viewers for your great questions and for coming and joining us and participating with us today. Thank you. I'll turn it over to our great leader and president of the Gwinnett NAACP, Ms. Penny Poole.
I think that you guys did a terrific job. Again, collaboration is the way to success. And I think I've about had it. We want to give it back to Braulio. Again, thank you, Galileo, for this first steps and getting this job and task successfully accomplished. It was a wonderful endeavor. And Jerry Gonzalez, I'm going to give you a shout out. I was hoping you were here, but I know you're somewhere looking, and we'll see the recording of this event. Again, Miss Lopez, thank you for all that you do in the community and your foresight to helping the municipal candidates, getting the information and training that they need. Remember, we are a nonpartisan organization, and we are here operating as a 501c4. And but please reach out to the parties who have the training, who have the knowledge, and who could guide you in that process on becoming a candidate. We hope this information was helpful. And again, for the third time, Braulio, back to you. We're going to give you last words.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Mayor of Norcross, Greg Newton, Peachtree Corner City Council candidate Joe Sawyer, Brenda Lopez. Thank you guys so much for coming out. You guys in the NAACP, please thank you guys so much for this lively event today. And with that being said, thank you guys. Please stay safe. Please, keep yourself distance. Have a great day. And thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Thank you guys.